Hello everybody, this is Dr. Cole. Saturday afternoon, July 9th. Most of you will be seeing this on Sunday the 10th as we now enter week 2 of Political Science 1013 for the second 7-week summer term at OPSU. Okay everybody, tomorrow, or perhaps today when you'll be looking at this Sunday, we'll be beginning discussion number 1, and that will run through Tuesday. Everybody is asked to post once initially, and then again in response to your classmates at least once before the end of the discussion period at midnight Tuesday. And the subject matter is, under what circumstances, if any, would you think it would be legitimate to take part in violent action against the government of the United States, as some people did on January 6, 2021, as we know. Okay, so contribute to that discussion topic between tomorrow, Sunday, and Tuesday. For 50 points, that would be one of 3 discussions we'll be running over the course of the term. So please try to get 2 discussion posts in by Tuesday midnight. Then after that, everybody, Friday the 15th will be our exam number 1. These will be coming up at a rapid pace. We have 48 class days. We have to get one of these in roughly every 12 days. So exam 1 will be Friday the 15th. There will be 50 items, mostly true, false, some multiple choice. You'll have 45 minutes to answer those 50 items, and you may do that anytime over the course of 24 hours, Friday, July 15th. The subject matter will be Units 1 and 2. Okay, Unit 1 on participation and number 2 on political parties and pressure groups, about which we're going to try to say a word here in just a moment. Okay. Now, for these 2 units, the textbook chapters that have been assigned are chapters 1, 8, and 9. Expect a few items based on that material. Most of it will come from my class notes and the 4 articles you have been assigned to read to be accessed online. You have one from the Atlantic Monthly. Yoni Applebaum is the author's name, I believe, suggesting that Americans are not as good as they used to be at practicing democracy, and what, if anything, should be done about that. You have an article from the New York Times that was reported from Enid, Oklahoma, not too far from the Oklahoma Panhandle. Going back now a few months, I believe, that area was quite roiled about what to do about mask mandates and similar measures that had been taken in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. So, how did people get involved on both sides of that question in Enid, Oklahoma? That's related to, of course, the topic of political participation. Then everyone, we have one article each to be read about each of the 2 major parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. The one about the Democrats comes from the Washington Post, and it has to do with disagreement among Democrats themselves, Democrats of different persuasions. And then the final one from the website spectator.org, the author gives his impression of what Donald Trump did for the Republican Party. All right? So those are 4 pieces you're asked to look at, in addition to your textbook chapters and your class notes on Units 1 and 2 for the exam Friday, exam number 1, Friday, July 15th, for 24 hours. 45 minutes to answer 50 items, anytime over the course of 24 hours, Friday, July 15th. And the link to the exam should be found in the modules area under Unit 2. You may also find a link to quizzes at the left of the course homepage. Click that and it will take you to a link for exam 1. All right then, just a few words about Unit 2, political parties and pressure groups. Unit 2 opens with some discussion about what parties in general are for. We might say they are organizations that attempt to win control of the government. The question then arises, why only 2 major political parties in the United States? And what we try to say there is, it's a matter of the rules of the game that we have made for contesting elections and organizing political parties in the United States. We discussed some examples of countries in Western Europe, for example, where you find many more than 2 parties that have a chance to get members elected to the legislature at the very least. So there are only two major parties in America. We have a two-party system. All right, what of those two major parties? We try to go through the history of the major parties going back at least to the 1930s. And we examine some of the twists and turns that the two major parties have gone through. There's some changes that have taken place in their composition, the kind of people that support each party. And this has happened throughout the history of the two-party system. To bring it up to date, we try to talk about where the two parties stand today. One thing you'll notice, we discuss quite a bit the situation of the Republican Party. The Republicans, under Trump especially, have gone after a voter who's not quite as affluent as the typical Republican voter used to be. You might say they've gone a little bit down market from where they were before. And the Democrats have done a parallel thing. They are perhaps a bit more upmarket than they used to be. And we discussed that quite extensively in the class notes, I believe. There's some fairly dramatic things that have happened to both of the parties over the past generation or more, to the Republican Party especially since the rise of Donald Trump. All right, so that will be in the class notes for you to look at. We wind up that unit by discussing pressure groups. Pressure groups or interest groups or lobbies, as they are sometimes called, organizations other than political parties that attempt to influence the government or influence the political system. Not by running candidates who try to win elections outright, but rather they try to influence government behind the scenes most of the time with regard to matters that are of concern to the pressure group's own membership, which generally will be quite limited compared to that of the political parties, or at least the people who identify with the political parties. We discuss in some detail two pressure groups everybody will be familiar with, or many of you at least, the AARP and the NRA. Of those two, the AARP is perhaps more typical. We find that most of the groups in what we call the pressure group system are there to work on behalf of the economic interests of their members. Now, they engage in many activities. One well-known one would be lobbying, which is why these organizations used to be called lobbies, still are in some cases, but political scientists felt that perhaps the term pressure group or interest group was better because these organizations do engage in other activities. For instance, they will attempt to raise money and make campaign contributions to politicians, candidates, incumbent members of office, through an organization that will be associated with the pressure group called a PAC, or Political Action Committee. They may try to motivate you to lobby the government indirectly. They want the government to have the impression that there's grassroots support for their views. So they would be very happy to have you intervene somehow by writing a letter, making a phone call, sending an email, contributing money in behalf of their cause. But pressure groups were known as lobbies because they engage in lobbying activity, which means direct face-to-face contact by a lobbyist with perhaps a bureaucrat, or more often an elected official, such as a member of Congress, the Senate, or especially the House of Representatives. We go through different categories of pressure groups. The most typical pressure group will be a group that's organized, of course, on behalf of the economic interests of its members. Not in every case, but in many cases. Now, there are many hundreds or perhaps thousands of pressure groups, depending on who's counting. Sometimes they were organized specifically to engage in political activity. Many of these were organized for other purposes, but engage in political activity as part of what they do. Professional organizations would be a good example. Organizations that try to set standards and provide information to their members about the practice of their profession. But the typical pressure group will be organized on behalf of the economic interest of its members. All right, so that in a nutshell is Unit 2. That will be the material for the exam on Friday, along with Unit 1 on participation that you're responsible for. The class notes, the textbook chapters, and the 4 readings you were asked to access online. The exam will be all day Friday, the 15th, and you'll have 45 minutes to take the exam once you begin to answer the 50 multiple choice and true false items. Then tomorrow, Sunday the 10th through Tuesday the 12th, we're conducting our discussion number 1. All right, so the exam will be Friday. We'll be moving on after that to units 3 and 4 on the media and the Constitution, which will be the subject matter for our second exam, midterm, toward the end of the month. So we'll be talking to you about all that at greater length a week from now. In the meantime, I hope everybody, or as many as can, will take part in the discussion. And we wish everyone good luck on the exam. That will be Friday the 15th. Good luck, study hard, take it easy, and we will see you about a week from now at this time.